the overnight shift at a Walmart for 2 years. I know how that sounds. But hear me out, because what happened on a Tuesday night in November of 2019 is the reason I no longer work nights. The reason I no longer work retail at all. The reason I check the back of my car every single time before I get in it, regardless of where I am or what time it is. This is not a ghost story, I wish it were. I was 23 years old and I had been closing the store 3 nights a week for about 18 months at that point. Overnight shifts at a large retail store are genuinely eerie in a way that is hard to explain to someone who has never done them. The building is massive. Ours was nearly 200,000 square feet. And once the last customer leaves, and the doors lock, and the fluorescent lights go to their low overnight setting, the whole place transforms into something that barely resembles itself. The aisles feel longer. The shadows between the shelving units go deep and dark. Every sound carries differently. Footsteps echo, carts rattle. The HVAC system makes sounds in the ceiling that your brain keeps trying to turn into something else. You get used to it. Most people get used to it. Most nights there were 4 or 5 of us working overnight, stocking shelves, cleaning, doing inventory. We would split up into different sections of the store and not see each other for hours at a time. The night this happened, I was working the garden center section at the far end of the building. Furthest point from the main entrance. Furthest point from anyone else. It was around 3 a.m. I was restocking shelves in the outdoor furniture aisle when I heard something in the next aisle over. Not a cart. Not the HVAC. Footsteps. Slow and deliberate, moving along the aisle parallel to mine. I assumed it was Marcus, one of the other overnight guys who sometimes worked that end of the store. I called his name. No answer. I called again. Nothing. I went to the end of my aisle and looked around the corner. The aisle was empty. I stood there for a moment listening. The footsteps had stopped. I told myself it was the building. Old stores make sounds. Shelving units shift. Pallets settle. I went back to restocking. 3 minutes later, I heard breathing. Not from the next aisle, from directly behind me. I turned around. There was a man standing at the end of my aisle. He was not a customer. We had locked the doors 2 hours earlier, and I had done the final sweep myself. Every aisle, every fitting room, every bathroom. The store was empty when I locked up. I was certain of it. But this man was here. He was tall, dark clothing. A hood pulled up so I could not see his face clearly in the low overnight lighting. He was just standing there at the end of the aisle watching me. I said, "Store is closed." "How did you get in here?" He did not answer. Did not move. I said it again, louder. He took 1 step toward me. I grabbed my radio off my belt and called Marcus. Told him to get to the garden center immediately and to call the manager. My voice came out steadier than I felt, which surprised me. The man stopped walking. Then he turned and walked around the corner out of the aisle. I did not follow him. I stood at my end of the aisle with my back against the shelving unit and watched the corner where he had disappeared and waited for Marcus. Marcus arrived in about 90 seconds, which felt like 90 minutes. I told him what I had seen. He looked at me for a moment and then got on the radio for the manager. The 3 of us walked the garden center section together. Every aisle, every corner. The storage room at the back. The emergency exit at the far end. The emergency exit was open. Not broken. Not forced. Just open. Pushed from the inside. The alarm should have triggered when it opened. Our emergency exits were all alarmed, but the alarm on that specific door had been reported as malfunctioning 3 weeks earlier and had not been repaired yet. We found where he had been hiding. In the storage room at the back of the garden center, there was a gap behind a row of large boxed patio sets stacked floor to ceiling, wide enough for a person to squeeze into. In that gap, we found a sleeping bag, a small backpack, 3 empty water bottles, a phone charger plugged into an outlet on the back wall. He had been living there. Not for 1 night. The sleeping bag was worn. The water bottles had been there long enough to gather a film of dust on the outside. The phone charger cord was frayed at both ends from use. Someone had been living inside our Walmart for weeks, coming out at night when the store was empty, moving through the aisles in the dark, using the bathrooms, taking food from the shelves, plugging his phone in to charge in the back of the garden center storage room, and every night when we locked the building and did our final sweep, he was already in that gap behind the patio sets, completely still, waiting for us to finish and go back to our sections. The police came. They did not find him on the property. The footage from the overnight cameras showed a figure moving through several sections of the store on multiple nights over a period of at least 3 weeks, always after 2 a.m., always gone before we got close to his section. I quit 2 weeks later. I have worked day shifts only ever since, but sometimes when I am in a large store, any large store, and I find myself alone in an aisle and everything goes quiet, I think about that gap behind the patio sets, and I think about how many times I must have walked right past it. I drive long haul, have done for 11 years, 18-wheelers, mostly Midwest to East Coast runs. I have driven through every kind of weather and every kind of night this country has to offer, and I do not spook easily. You cannot do this job if you spook easily. You spend too many hours alone on too many dark roads with too much time to think. I am telling you this so you understand what it means when I say that what happened at a gas station on Interstate 40 in rural Tennessee is the only thing in 11 years of driving that has genuinely stayed with me. It was a Thursday night in late September. I was running a load from Memphis to Charlotte, and I was about 3 hours into the drive when my fuel gauge told me I needed to stop. It was just past midnight. The interstate was quiet. A few other trucks, the occasional car, the usual light traffic you get on a long stretch of highway in the early hours. I pulled off at an exit I did not recognize. Small green sign. No indication of what was there beyond the ramp. The gas station was about a quarter mile from the interstate. A small independent place. Not a chain, just a white building with 2 pump islands and a lit sign that said gas in red letters. The lights were on inside, but I could not see anyone behind the counter through the window. I pulled the truck up to the largest pump and got out. The air was warm and completely still. No other vehicles at the pumps. No other trucks in the lot. Just mine and the empty station and the sound of the interstate in the distance. I started the pump and leaned against the truck and looked around. That is when I noticed the car. It was parked at the far end of the lot away from the pumps. An older model sedan, dark-colored, engine off, no lights, just sitting there facing the station building. I had not seen it when I pulled in. It was positioned just outside the reach of the pump island lights, and the lot itself was not well lit. I watched it for a moment. No movement inside. No one getting out. I went inside to pay and grab a coffee. The man behind the counter was maybe 60. Small and thin, with the specific look of someone who had been awake for a very long time. He took my money and did not say much. As I was pouring my coffee, I asked him if he knew whose car that was at the end of the lot. He looked up from the register, looked out the window toward the far end of the lot, then looked back at me. He said, "How long has it been there?" I said I did not know. It was there when I pulled in. He did not say anything for a moment. Then he said, "Do me a favor. Do not go near that car, pay for your fuel, and go." I looked at him. He looked back at me with an expression that was not quite fear and not quite calm. Somewhere between the two. The expression of someone who has seen enough of something to know when not to ask questions. I said, "What is going on?" He said, "I do not know. But that car has been there since before my shift started at 9. Nobody has gotten in or out of it. Nobody has come inside. It is just sitting there. 3 hours. The car had been sitting there for at least 3 hours with no sign of the driver. I paid and went back outside. I did not go near the car, but I looked at it as I walked back to my truck. Really looked at it this time. The windows were fogged. Not on the outside and from the cold or from dew. On the inside. The kind of fog that builds up inside an enclosed space. when someone has been breathing in it for a long time. Someone was in that car. I got in my truck and pulled out of the lot and got back on the interstate and called 911 from the road. I told the dispatcher what I had seen. The car, the fogged windows, what the man behind the counter had said. She took down the exit number and said she would send someone. I kept driving. I do not know what they found when they got there. I have thought about calling the local sheriff's office to follow up. I have never done it. Part of me does not want to know. But I think about those fogged windows sometimes when I pull into a gas station late at night. About what it means when a car sits in a dark lot for 3 hours with the engine off and the windows fogging from the inside. About who was in there and what they were waiting for.